welcome to part 2 where I will show my code. So let me close this to not be confused. So what we have here, we have a dump component, what we are sending, that we are showing. We don't have any logic here, so it's easy to understand what is going here. We are going on sign up page where we have the logic. So first we have two objects which we are storing in state, user info and validation errors. Here we have the post request. It's not now important. We will focus on these three functions plus here what we are making. I just added this validation error. You can see here, not here, just here. I just passed one validation error just to show the validation errors. Here I made some changes. I used prettier to format my code, and I always recommend to newcomers to JavaScript. For that, people made prettier. When you write some code, you always can forget, as me, I'm experienced developer, but still I forget to add commands to make new row, to follow some rows. Let me show you. No, here I changed just a bit of logic, but still if I format, prettier maybe can find some places where there are required formatting, so please use prettier, especially in my project. Thank you. So I added just a validation error field, and that's all. So I just changed the logic. What I added just one listener for validation errors and one which prevents the error, the submission if we have some errors, and to show some message. So what we have here, we are making const val error, and for every type, target type, because input have types, so we had type field, type input form, and let me show. We have password, text, email. So for now I don't have some complicated logic, so I can validate based on types. So in future maybe we can add validation type, for example, to be date. If we want to validate some date, some special character fields, some integers, some many things we can add. So it will be easy. I will show you why, because here in validate field I am just calling one validation. So I'm taking the type and the value, I'm passing to this object where I don't have switch cases. As I mentioned, I don't like switch cases. Here directly I'm calling the function which I want. So for example, I don't check all fields. For example, in many validation patterns you can see that we are checking, as I showed in my previous video, You can see we check it for first name, last name. If we have 10,000 fields, imagine we have to check for 10,000 fields or no. Here we are just passing the type we want to check. So as I mentioned, here we can add, if you want more kinds, here we can add integer to write some logic for integer. If you want also to have some constraints, additional constraints for the values, which we can just add min, max, and to pass them here. So many additional variants. So here we are using solid principles. It's closed for changing but open for adding more similar logic kinds. I hope that you are understanding the solid principles. I will not dive deep, but this is pure representation of this. Also, maybe this can be called some kind of observer, because here we have an observer object. This is the observant and this is the observer, and when this change, this listen for the changes of this object, and if we have not valid data, we are just showing an error. So I will not dive deep, but the main idea is that. So here if we return some error, we are setting this error with the type, with the name which we are receiving in the event, and if we have error we are adding. If we don't have error, we are deleting the key. Why I delete here the key? Why if don't delete the key? Just I set the validation like this. So how, if we have some error, how to see if we don't have error? Maybe there are two, how to say, ways to check that. But for example, before to submit, now I made just to listen if we have invalidation errors some keys. You can see we are raising the error, and at the beginning I am making these keys. You can see I will reload. I will open the component, and to see the state here you can see first name, last name, all keys which can have errors are here. Required fields, of course, in future maybe some of them will be not required, and then we have to add more logic. For example, here we will extend the logic, we will add required. Of course, I will show this in my future videos if we still keep this kind of validation, because I mentioned in my issues that maybe we will be able to create some another kind of validation except Formic, because Formic is really, how to say, easy. Let me check, 10 minutes. Okay, I will finish it soon. So here we are checking for keys. If we have some keys in the validation errors, we are raising the error. So if I start and will show you, I will start to write the first name. You can see the validation message is changing. So when I write it, you saw when I write, for example, John, the validation field disappeared, last name don't, email, I will write some email, you can see disappeared some phone number, some password, many characters, and I'm able to submit. And now works. So simple logic, as I mentioned. So the other way is to check to not delete the key here, and to check for all keys if we have some, how to say, some validation error. For example, if it's undefined or something like this, we can, I will delete it. Let me see what we'll have, what we will receive if we delete that. Refreshing, I want to refresh. So here we have, let me show you the object, and I'm starting to write. So it even do not delete. Maybe I have to remove this if statement. Yes, and just to set the validation errors directly. Okay, I want to refresh to have a new page. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Undefined. So we can check for undefined here. For every key we can check, do we have undefined. If we have some undefined, if it's not undefined, excuse me, because if it's undefined, it's, how to say, it's good. So if all are undefined, then pass. So this is also, but I prefer this one. So just I wanted to show you some logic behind that. So let me show you again the fields, so you can extend this field if you want something what the user can add. So he have name, last name, email, phone number. So address, we want the address of the, or from which city. Okay, from which city is this guy? Of course this will not work because the backend is not prepared for that. But you can see, okay, we have some error. Label name, okay. So here you can see, now we have in the city. Now we have errors and for the city. So super easy for changing. Do you saw? Do you imagine in the previous version if you had to input the city? So here also, when we implement validation for home fields, we will just add some fields, just remove, add, or whatever we want. We will just, how to say, change the object, change the fields, because this is just an array of objects. And here we will not change the main logic. Here the logic will remain the same. Here the dump component will remain the same. We will not write 10,000 fields and to check. And when we make the logic, the CPU have to check for every if statement. No, we are just passing some object with validation functions, and that's all. Thank you for the attention.